Elizabeth. I would have her at 28, and I would have a Rottweiler named Fonzie. These were plans I made when I was about 15 years old in high school. My little girl would look like me in my mind's eye, and like her father, who would be Antonio Sabato Jr., but liberal. Spoiler alert, I did not marry him, but I did meet him. Back to Elizabeth. She would be spunky, and she wouldn't take shit from anyone, and she would be my purpose, and she would make me a better person. When I was a kid, I never in a million years imagined a life in which I would never be a mom. That is, after all, a woman's job, right? Cut to college. One day I crashed an acting class needing one more elective to transfer. My professor at the time, a stocky Mexican man named Goyo Flores, told me I had it. That first semester, I did a few scenes and a monologue in front of the class, and it was exhilarating. He told me I needed to be an actress. He made me believe that I had talent, and he encouraged me to share it. I would come to adore Goyo Flores. He was my first mentor, and with gentle guidance, he inspired me to take a path that I had not planned for myself. I started studying the craft, that's what we call it, acting. I liked it. No, I really, really liked it. In the first few years studying, I acted, I wrote, I directed, marketed, costumed, and sound designed plays all through college. I loved being involved in every aspect of theater. The creative process became like a religion to me. Eventually, I settled on acting and directing as my major focuses and truly felt I had found my calling. I joined the Mesa College Theater Company, and I was cast in 5 plays in 2 years. When I graduated, I produced my first play in a little coffee shop in North Park called Claire de Lune. The owner, Claire, said we could use the space for free because she was new and needed customers, and so we produced 2 plays there that went really well. I continued to produce plays around town, and eventually I went on to study at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. I was completely immersed in this new adventure I was on. I decided to finish college at SDSU and got my degree in theater. When I graduated from SDSU, I started Intermission Productions, my theater company, with friends who were as passionate as me about telling stories and creating something out of nothing. I went nonstop for years. The path had been laid out for me. I didn't even see it. I just followed the direction my life was taking. When I was 31, my mother was diagnosed with heart disease, then kidney failure. They found an aneurysm, and she also had breast cancer. My job very quickly became caretaker. 13 years would go by in the blink of an eye. I was working full-time, running a theater company, and caring for my mother. I did not have time to think about Elizabeth anymore. And anyway, did I even really want children? I would shrug. Maybe one day, there's still time. My mother passed away when I was 42. I was still running the theater. I was still working full-time. But all of a sudden, I had a lot of time to think about my life, time I had not had for many years. There were plenty of years in between where I thought about having children or not having them, and I always leaned toward not having children. There was not time for it in my life. My impression is they take a lot of time. It was not my only job in life to become a mother. But after my mom died, I started thinking about Elizabeth again. I started daydreaming about this little girl and thinking about how awesome it might be to see my mother in her. What would it be like to care for a child? Could I do it financially? Would I even be a good mom? Having a baby became something I started thinking about a lot. During this period of transition, a lot of things changed. I began working with a personal trainer, and I lost 70 pounds. The theater company had completed a very successful first full season, and I was starting to feel somewhat in control of my life again, except for one thing. I had been experiencing fatigue. My workouts were incredibly painful, and I had been dealing with extreme pain during menstruation, and my doctor ordered an ultrasound. At 43, I was diagnosed with uterine fibroids. There were 2 attached to the outside of my uterus. They were 5 to 6 centimeters each, about the size of a tennis ball. The doctor explained I had a few options. I could go on hormone therapy, also known as birth control, to see if it would manage the symptoms and shrink the bastards, or I could have a hysterectomy. The doctor told me that a hysterectomy would eventually be my best and only option. He said the birth control would not cure the symptoms, but might allow me a little bit more time to consider my family planning options, if that was something I was still considering at my age. The surgery, by the way, was elective, even though it was his recommendation because my symptoms weren't life-threatening. It would take months to get the procedure approved by my insurance. It was a difficult thing to accept, so I did get 2 other opinions, and they all agreed my uterus was a piece of shit and had to go. These were my only options. How could my body betray me like this? I carried that thing around for 43 fucking years for what? I began the hormone therapy that day. My gynecologist carefully explained the process of getting the procedure approved and that it could take months. He said, "Who knows, maybe you'll get lucky." Meaning in that window, I may find the man of my dreams and get pregnant and complete my mission on Earth. That was really funny when he said that. Do you want to know how to make a middle-aged woman cry? Joke about her ability to procreate and make her question every choice she ever made up until the fateful day she is told she may no longer have the choices she kept putting off. Well, I didn't get lucky. The fibroids got worse. The pain became unbearable. I was medicating for about 15 to 20 days of the month just to function, and some days I did not function at all. I was missing work, I was exhausted all the time, and I was an emotional wreck dealing with the hormones on top of the emotional stress of being in pain all the time. And I had to pee multiple times in an hour all day, every day, which meant I hadn't had a full night's sleep in months. In essence, I got to experience some of the least desirable symptoms of being pregnant without any of the actual joy of creation. I knew I had to make a choice, live with this pain in hopes of fulfilling my feminine destiny, or have the hysterectomy and let go of the dream and hope of Elizabeth forever. I opted for a partial hysterectomy. This would allow me to keep my ovaries so I can still process the hormones that help ladykind deal with the ups and downs of life. And I might enjoy sex a little more than if I had a full hysterectomy, so I definitely went for that option. The next few weeks leading up to the surgery went by pretty fast and feel like a blur now. I threw myself a party before the surgery, a goodbye of sorts. I invited my friends, and we celebrated my uterus, and we bid it adieu. There were cupcakes. There were also a lot of emotions swirling around in my head and my heart, and I had to allow myself the time to grieve this part of me that I had to let go of. I did not realize how much my uterus defined my femininity. Who would I be without this organ? This organ that was useless to me now, but is the reason why new life is possible on the planet. I remember feeling a bit like a failure and a bit angry that this was my only option. I remember my sister flew in from Dallas with my niece to take care of me after the surgery, which is an 8-week-long process, also about the same time as maternity leave for most women. I remember my best friend being in the hospital waiting room the morning of my surgery and there beside my bed when I woke up hours later. I remember the nurse. She was an awesome, kick-ass lesbian woman, and she made several jokes to make the prep a little more bearable. She was very invested in making me comfortable. I was very grateful for her humor and calm, caring tone on this particular day. She saw the tears in my eyes, and she took my hand and she squeezed it. And she said, "I'm going to ask you 2 very difficult questions, and I have to ask them, and I really hate that I have to ask them." She said, "To your knowledge, are you pregnant?" I said, "No." She said, "Do you understand that after today you will never be able to get pregnant?" I broke down. I could barely get the yes out. The nurse holding one hand and my sister grabbing my other hand. The nurse knew how difficult this is for most women. It wasn't her first time at this rodeo. I can't explain the pit in my stomach, and I wish no one ever had to experience this. I would never be a biological mom. The surgery, thankfully, went really well. The fibroids had grown to the size of a softball just above my bladder. and one the size of a delicious cantaloupe pressing right into my kidney. They are all gone now, and I still feel the absence of the pain they caused and the holes they left in their wake. My body is for the most part pain-free, and I do not miss my period at all. At all. I had to make a choice that only women have to make. I also had to deconstruct a few things about what it means to be a woman and all of the things we are told being a woman means. It turns out I have many jobs. The job of artist, of community builder, artistic director, filmmaker, best friend, sister, godmother, and lover when I get lucky. I am strong enough to know that my ability to have children or not have children does not define me and make me less than. And that is the advice I would give any woman who is going through anything similar to this. But it was somehow different when it applied to me. Somehow I wanted to question every decision I had ever made up until this point in my life. I had to stop and remind myself I had made a lot of choices for my life because I could, not because anyone made me. This was one thing that was out of my control, but most of my life had been my choice. I chose to chase my dream of creating theater, and I chose to be the daughter who cared for her sick mother, and I chose to create space for other artists to explore their dreams too. The truth is, I have created a lot, and I have cultivated so much love and community through the focus I chose for my life. It is also true that I can still be a mother one day if I choose to adopt, and I still think about her sometimes and what could be. There is one thing I know for certain. My work here is far from over. I haven't met my Elizabeth yet, but the part of me that needed to create something bigger than myself has found Elizabeth in many unexpected ways. And who knows, maybe someday. Thank you.
That was Carla Nell, everybody. Give it up.